Hey everybody, I am sitting here with Sam and Gina Mitchell from the Autism Rocks and Rolls podcast, and I am so excited to introduce you to Sam and what an inspiration that he is in the podcasting world, in the autism world, and his mission moving forward with his podcast. Sam and Gina, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank
Glad
you.
to be here.
Awesome. So this is actually our second time recording this because we had a little technical difficulties the first time. But Sam, I know you got started in October of 2019. Can you just tell us why you started this podcast, Autism Rocks and Rolls?
Yeah, sure. It was after I joined my high school's media club, and then which I don't run, but I do some of the episodes, which is Thundercast. And my last episode I came out today, so I'm kind of crying internally.
Oh, is your last one?
Yep.
Oh.
I'm kind of sad. I'll still tune in as a listener. Like tears are rolling down, but not like
Yeah.
not real.
So
Well, he graduates. I'm Gina. I'm Mom. He graduates. Yeah.
But yeah, I ran some of that, and I thought, I bet I could do some at home. I'd make my own homemade one, and sure enough, I did.
Yeah. So how long were you doing the media for your school before you said, hey, I'm going to do this myself? Was it immediate or did you take some time?
It was some time. It was probably some time, but I still did it immediate, but took some time. We had to go through the process of making it up. We had to get the process of getting the material, which was a big birthday present for me, surprisingly. This one surprised me, even though I kind of knew it was happening because you hit it badly. But so it was not the dream was like right away, but it wasn't like boom podcast after wasn't boom I graduate podcast ordeal. It wasn't that. It was really just doing it on my terms, I guess is the way to put it.
For sure, yeah. Go ahead, Gina.
Yeah, I had to get all the stuff to do it.
Yeah.
Stuff just doesn't fly on you.
Yeah. I was telling my wife today that time just goes by so fast, and like there's not enough time to go from ideation to like execution in a timely manner. Like your mind can get ahead of what your body and worldly can do. Tell us, Sam, why like this podcast? What's the mission behind your podcast?
Got it. Well, there are two missions actually. The first mission was to help people. In all honesty, that was the first one, which I did accomplish because there's a lot of stories. You could probably tell some after I'm done with my answer. But now the goal is to like take the negative stigma off of autism and to show that we're not broken, we don't need to be fixed, and we're chill in society. I mean, we don't need. I don't want to say like medicine because some do need medicine. We need to be treated or institutionalized. You can piggyback off now, and maybe explain some stories.
Yeah, I completely. When Sam started the podcast, it was like we said, not sudden. Just because he had to get the equipment and the material. Like it took a while. He didn't even really know what he was going to have the podcast about at first. He just knew that he really liked Media Club and he really wanted to try it. And so when he started talking about it, I'm an English teacher, so my first question to him was, well, what are you passionate about? Because the passion has to come out in your podcast or nobody will listen to it. So for him, it was pretty easy. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 4. And, we've had lots of trials and tribulations throughout the years, but, we gave him the resources for him to be successful. And yeah, his mission has become mine as well.
Yeah.
I do want people to see Sam. And if Sam wants to put that puzzle piece of autism first, then by all means, he's allowed to do that. But if he doesn't want to, he's a lot of other things. And there's this negative stigmatization on autism that, oh, I'm sorry, somebody, your son has autism. I've been told that several times. And my response is, I don't know why you're sorry because I'm not sorry. He's, in my eyes, he does have challenges, but we do too. So I don't really see much difference with him. To me, he's just Sam. And I, I raised him to be, or my husband and I raised him to be respectful. That's number one in our house. That's a non-negotiable. Um, we taught him to be respectful. We taught him to work hard, autism or not. It was the expectations were still there.
So when Sam came to you, Gina, to say, "Hey, I want to start a podcast," what was your first reaction? Was like, did you know anything about podcasts, or like, walk me through your train of thought through this?
She didn't know nothing.
I didn't know, and I know a lot more than I did, but he's still the expert on like the technicalities of things.
I get to teach you at something, which is the fun part.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've learned a lot about marketing and networking. I could probably like teach classes on it at this point because I taught myself. I taught myself how to build websites. I taught myself everything about social media. So that's kind of my end of it. That my first thought was I didn't want him to be disappointed. I didn't want him to try something. But then, like we've done his entire life, we had to step back and say, no, wait a minute. Like, are we not going to encourage him to do things just because he'd be disappointed? I mean, that's part of life. So I was nervous a little bit, but then I don't know, like a year or so into it, maybe even 6 months, a year, we started to see like people are really responding to this, and like we said yesterday, sponsorship. That was what changed the whole ball.
Yeah.
So Sam, you had a like expectation. Everybody has, some level of expectation coming into a podcast, starting a new podcast. Some people, the bar is really low. Some people, the bar is really high. How was that for you when you started? And then, you can see kind of your download numbers. You can see how people are reacting in those first few months. Was it more than you expected or less than you expected?
Definitely more. I mean, actually less than I expected, because I was let's put this, I was expecting to get a few hits, and then not like maybe like 50 or so, not 80 or not 101, not 79.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to get this big. I just wanted to make, like I said, the goal was never a job. It was just a hobby, and it's just grown.
Yeah.
That's
so
basically the final story.
For you, Sam, like when you got that first sponsorship, a year and a half kind of time frame in, like what was going through your head at that point when you're like, hey, well, people are paying attention to this enough that somebody wants to help me? Like, how did that go with you?
Well, funny story. I didn't know what a sponsor was at first. I'm actually dead serious. When Mom said, hey, this guy's going to sponsor you, I'm like, okay, what does that mean exactly? And the sponsor, his son goes to my school, and we're both in the same grade.
Oh, cool.
And it was Wellspring Paint Solutions. It was his biological or stepfather?
His stepson.
Stepson's, no, stepdad. Is that his dad or?
His stepdad, yeah.
Oh, yeah. His stepdad contacted me and said, I'm going to sponsor you. And I thought, okay. I didn't know what it was, so we called. And then as time went on with the sponsorship, I decided, maybe get some more. I mean, maybe go to places and spread the word out. So we went to Bloomington for a sponsor field trip day. And I was expecting to get like, a couple like interest.
Yeah.
We got a lot of interest. We got a tattoo parlor shop, which was extremely surprising, and a chocolate shop. What else did we get in Bloomington? Perfection Auto Glass.
Wow.
Commercial service.
Yeah.
That's CPA tax service. But we also got the word out.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I know just like the story behind, who you're trying to reach and the message that you're trying to serve is so powerful. And that's where I think you guys are attracting, a lot of good people into your life. I know Gina, I actually found out about you, Sam. Gina posted in one of my Facebook group that I run, and it's called Podcasters Connection. So if anybody's listening that has a podcast, feel free to join us. Just post about Sam's story, and it was like hit after hit, like we need Sam on my podcast. I want Sam on my podcast, So I imagine you're going to be doing a lot of podcasts here for other people as well. But I think there's just such a powerful story to what you're doing. I'm curious to how you articulate that to people. Like, is there like when they meet with you, are you telling them the whole like story, or what are you telling them to say, yeah, okay, this is what a sponsorship could look like, and this is why you'd want to sponsor our show?
Well, he just turned around and asked me to answer that one. So,
because I don't know what you mean, Bob.
Well, and I think too, well, and I think I know why he doesn't quite understand. It's just kind of my perspective of it is when Sam and I, this for a long time, this was his.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of, like I was mom and I'm still mom, but I was very just, encouraged him, and it was so cool to see it taking off. But then when it started getting so big, he couldn't do it by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had to have a family meeting and say, now look.
Was it a mother and son meeting or a family meeting?
Well, it was a husband and a wife meeting first. My husband and I sat
Gotcha.
down and said, I feel the energy, something big is going to happen.
Yeah, so we got our jobs. I'm the guy behind the voice. She's the editor. And my dad, I think we're going to make him the manager.
Yeah, well, he calls himself like the maintenance man because he just kind of fixes everything. So,
He is a maintenance.
And he is a maintenance
He
man.
actually really is. I think
really
he's a maintenance
is. He's
man.
a maintenance electrician. So yeah, he kind of does that all the time.
Cool.
But as far as like the jobs that we do, so a lot of the articulation, it kind of depends on what they ask. If they're asking about sponsorships, I tend to take that just because that's the paperwork. And I know the price, and he knows the prices too, but I have it like completely organized, and I know. So that's, I don't know, we make a good team whenever we meet with people. I feel like we both
we got a script.
We both say our own thing, and sometimes it differs because it's different people, and sponsorships for Autism Rocks and Rolls mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, we have 2 sponsors that are full on board that bought 2 years worth of ad space.
Which ones?
Perfection Auto Glass and Wellspring Pain Solutions. They bought tons of ads, but then we have a couple of other sponsors that were like, okay, it's a tax service, so we want to put ads on during tax time. And then we have another sponsor, Fowler's Pumpkin Patch, and they want to put some on around Halloween. And then we have some that they don't necessarily want ad space. We got, for one of our sponsors, Commercial Service, they said, what does Sam need to make his business grow? And we said, he really wants to join Pot and he just couldn't afford at that time to pay.
I'm broke and a cheapskate half the time.
I mean, he could now, but in the beginning he wanted to try to grow, so
sure.
they just bought Pot for him. And then we had another sponsor, they bought Pod Match, for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we just
And then some are just like pay for the following, remember? About those,
and
like
then
Farm Bureau,
Farm Bureau,
Wagon Wheel.
Mm-hmm. Some of them do, we call it mini sponsorships, where they do, we have 3 sections. We have full-blown ad space for the big sponsors. And then we have paid shout outs, which is $15 for a 15-second shout out. And then we have a free section that is to Sam's discretion. That if somebody has come along and they've really helped him and he's like, I'm not going to charge them, then he will just give them that shout out in that section. So he's really got the format figured out.
Oh yeah, I got it figured out.
So what does you said kind of like full blown ad space? What does that look like? What does it cost?
Blown ad.
30 seconds.
Yep, I got this. So 30 seconds, $45. No, wait a minute.
No.
30. How long is it? 30? I know the 60. I can't figure out the 30. 25. Okay, there we go. 25 is for this 30-second ad. 45 for a 60-second ad. And what the full sponsorship basically looks like is we advertise for you on the sponsor, but you better advertise for me as well. Because even I mean, I don't care how you do it. You put me on the website, put me on the door by chance. I mean, you don't literally attach me to the door, but but you put a flyer on the door, we're good. You're advertising for me, you're good to go.
It's just kind of like an ad swap, but it goes beyond that. It goes to, so like, for example, Sam had.
He's going to wagon wheel. Use them as an example because you know what they do, right?
Yeah, well, I was going to use one of your episodes. So his last episode was a band from Australia, Brisbane, Australia, and the lead singer is on the spectrum. And so Sam interviewed them. And so I have my things that I do. So a few days before, I make all these flyers and I put them everywhere and I send the flyers to our sponsors. And then they put the flyers up. They share on all of their social media. And then we just have this, we have this agreement to where this is what they do. I have it all typed out. I have a sponsor form. They don't even have to sign it. Like, we don't make anybody sign anything contractually. It's just, this is the paper. This is what, if it's full sponsorship, this is what we'd like you to do. And this is what we'll do on our end. So cool. It took a while. It took a while to work out those kinks. And I'm sure.
Especially with not even knowing, really what a podcast was beforehand and going here. I'm curious to know, and I know the audience is curious, this always comes up with like download numbers to price what you're charging. So you just kind of mapped out your pricing. If you don't mind, like, do you know what your current monthly downloads are for the podcast?
I can look at, if you give me a minute, I can hop on Poppy. I'll look at last month's for you.
Just give him ballpark.
I can't give a ballpark. I want to give the exact number.
Well, I mean, we could kind of do the math because our internet's a little shaky still, so I don't want to mess anything up. As far as like, how many downloads do you have total?
I don't know. That's why I want to look at that.
The last time I looked total, he had 5,200 downloads for a 2-year span. So, I mean, some episodes, especially if it's like like Dr. Temple Grandin, or if it's Simon Bajumdar, or if it's Armani Williams, the NASCAR driver. It's scheduled, right, for Sarah? Yeah, so I can say
as long as you make. Is it scheduled?
It's scheduled, yeah. So we have a really good guest coming up at the end of the month. She is from Resident Alien. It's on Sci-Fi, and she was also in I believe it was Netflix series Sneaky Pete. Her name is Sarah Tomko, and she's a pretty well-known actress.
And pretty.
And Sam thinks she's very pretty. She is very pretty. But she is a huge advocate for mental health. And Sam we love that show, so we kind of researched her, so she's coming on the show. So that one will probably get lots of downloads. Mick Foley, the WWE wrestler, is coming on Sam's show in June. Wow. That will get.
I thought it was July.
I'm sorry, July. Yeah. It was going to be June, but he couldn't in June. So that will get hundreds of downloads.
Well, we don't know that though. It could though.
We don't know that, but I would assume that it would.
Yeah. So I can feel the momentum kind of rolling in your voice and just kind of your body language. That's so cool. It's hard to get something going, but then once you get it going, it's fun to see, where it goes. And we're getting towards the end of our time here, Sam. So I want you to tell us, like, where do you see your podcast going? Like, if you could choose in a year or two from now, like, how would you want your podcast to be?
I have no clue.
I mean,
it's only time will tell for that, bub.
Yeah, I mean, he always gets that question, and I think
not always.
Sometimes, but it's always a good question. But I think we're so far into it now. I've joked with him and said, you go off to college, because he's living at home next year, and then he will probably go to a different college and live there. Is what he says his sophomore year. But if it's still going, we can communicate, because it's an hour away. But we are actually getting ready to start a nonprofit. We have the packet.
Oh, nice.
I have a really good friend who works in the business, and she's going to just kind of help us for free, I think. And we're going to get that going. But once that's why we had to have that family meeting. Because we needed to really be on the same page and help Sam understand, if we go forward with this at the speed that it's going, you can't just wake up and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. That's not an option at this point. Like, we have to
Well, at least for season 2.
Somebody has to continue because it's so big.
Yeah.
And
I was wondering if you guys were going to go down the path of a nonprofit. So that's cool that's happening. So, Sam, if there's one thing that you want to encourage other podcasters in, just based on your journey, what advice would you give to a fellow podcaster?
Just do it. Honestly, if you think you want to do it, go for it. Give it a shot. If it flops, you can try something new. But if it works, keep going.
And even if it doesn't work, keep going. Because from what
Failure's an opportunity.
Yeah, from what I've seen, people get into stuff like this, not for the pay. I mean, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for almost 17 years. And for sure, it's never been for the money. It's been because I want to help.
Get paid more.
I want to help kids. That's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the podcasters and the people that we've met, they do want to monetize it like Sam does, but it's a passion.
Mm-hmm.
And we've met several people that said, oh no, I don't make any money. I just love doing this.
Yeah.
So even if it doesn't work exactly the way that you want it to, do what you love. And maybe it will. I mean, you can't give up on it. I mean, we almost did a few times. I mean, I go to work hours a day. I grade at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do this job as well. And there were several times I thought, we are working so hard. Is this ever going to happen? And we didn't stop. And it's still hard days, still hard some days where it's like, oh, that didn't happen and we really wanted it to. So you got to just go for it, like Sam said.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you both coming on this show and giving us some inspiration, sharing some light on your journey of podcasting. I know the listeners will take a lot of value from that. So Sam and Gina, thanks for being on the show.
Of course, buddy.
Really fast, autismrocksandrolls.com. That's where you can find everything for Sam's journey, merchandise, sponsorship. It's all there.
For sure. And I'll have links to that in the show notes, as well as you'll see some social posts coming from Perfect My Podcast, and you guys will get tagged and everything there as well. So
sounds great.